Hello and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. How are you all? It's Easter. Happy Easter. Happy Chocolate Day. Happy Jesus Day if you celebrate Jesus. Happy 4-day weekend if you're in the UK. Do anyone else have a 4-day weekend for Easter? I hope you're all having a lovely time. I can see Minnie snoozing on the windowsill. She's so cute. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in the month of March. I read 10 books in the month of March. I really flew through some. March was supposed to be my my month where I was going to read longer books and do things like that, but I just absolutely flew through so many long books that I was really pleased with the amount of reading I did. I'm going to start with a book that I don't have here, and that is a book that I listened to on Audible, and that is Kennel-Worthy Crisps. I might even have said that. I think it's Kennel-Worthy. Kennel-Worthy Crisps, Quidditch Through the Ages, which is a Pottermore book produced by J.K. Rowling to raise money for, I think it's Comic Relief and Sport Relief. I listened to this on Audible. It's Andrew Lincoln narrating it, and he just does such a good job. He really does do a really good job. It was only a couple of hours long, about 3 hours long, and the first half of the book is all sort of information about Quidditch Through the Ages, as you would imagine. There's a bit in it really tickled me where Andrew Lincoln's voicing a character who's put a bet on some Quidditch, and she's lost, and they said that she's got to pay 10 galleons or something, and she says something like, and you know I haven't got a sickle to my name, so the old house had to go. And it just really tickled me. I really laughed for ages. And then the end of it is Ginny Weasley reporting on the Quidditch World Cup, with Rita Skeeter doing a sort of like gossip column, watching Harry Potter and his friends watch the Quidditch World Cup final in like the celebrity box. And I really love that. The girl who voiced Ginny Weasley, she's the Ginny we need, guys. In the film, she was very good. I don't actually know who that was, but she was very good. I really would recommend it. It was really fun and lovely, and I found it really fun. I think David's going to listen to it as well. But yeah, so I think I gave that like 4.5 stars or 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. So well done, you guys. Well done, Andrew Lincoln. Very fun. But anyway, on to the books that I actually have here. The first one I read was Goodnight, Stories for Rebel Girls 2. These books are everywhere at the moment. These are books where they have influential and amazing women throughout history with a piece of artwork and then a short story written about their lifetime. The artwork in this is like it's just absolutely wonderful, and they have lots and lots of female illustrators that do it. So there's a whole, look at that, I mean that is amazing. That is Purna Malavath, who's a mountaineer from India. And yeah, what I liked about this edition is that there's a lot more younger people in there, people who are alive now, and like so many people I hadn't even heard of. Really enjoyed it very much. So yeah, that's Goodnight, Stories for Rebel Girls 2. There's so many of those books around at the moment. If you haven't seen them, you must have just been living under a rock somewhere. The next book I didn't really enjoy very much, and that's Fat Gay Vegan, Eat, Drink and Live Like You Give a Shit by Sean O'Callaghan. I followed the Fat Gay Vegan Instagram account, and I've had a bit like, there's something about, so I read Veganuary in January, the book that Veganuary prepared, and that's very like nicely introducing you to veganism. These are the reasons you should do it. Well done for giving it a try. These are the places you can go to get you help to become a vegan. You might be wanting to do veganism for health reasons, for environmental reasons, for to save animals, etc. And it really explores in a pleasant and encouraging way. This book doesn't, so I shouldn't be holding it up. Why you should become a vegan. That's the Veganuary book. This I picked up off the back of that, thinking, oh, this will be good. And this, in combination with his Instagram account, it's very aggressive is probably the wrong word, because I don't mean to say aggressive, but it's very like, this is the vegan way, and if you're trying to be vegan, you're not doing enough. You need to just be vegan. Which, as someone who was a pescatarian last year, to take quite a leap to become a vegan, that is quite, and also who lives with someone who isn't a vegan and who doesn't live in London, and don't have many vegan options around me. This just wasn't encouraging enough for me, and I find his Instagram account like that as well. And sadly, recently he posted a I actually ended up unfollowing him on Instagram. He posted a post saying that he was like really aggressive language as well, like swearing and things. That's my computer going off. Saying how he's really fucking pissed off that all these a lot of vegan food markets and stuff have stalls there that are from restaurants that are meat, that sell meat but have a vegan option. And for me, if you're not eating the vegan option in meat restaurants, then surely the vegan option in meat restaurants will just disappear. People think, well, we don't need it. And I just feel like there needs to be a lot more encouragement for people who are becoming vegans. And I noticed a lot of people underneath had said, like, your post is very elitist for people who live in London. I don't live in London, as I don't either, so I can't get to a vegan bakery, I can't get to a vegan restaurant. Like, my nearest vegan restaurant, I don't even know where in Whitstable, so like still relatively close but not near where I live or anything. So yeah, I felt that tone throughout this. I didn't feel like this taught me anything I didn't already know, having read the Veganuary book. And yeah, it just left this, combined with his Instagram account and that post he did, I just felt a bit, it just left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. So yeah, as I said, I've unfollowed him, and I'll be getting rid of this, because yeah, it just didn't, I just don't feel like it taught me anything, and it left me feeling like I wasn't good enough. And it's hard, like when you go from eating fish one year to becoming a vegan the next year, it is hard, and I have had slip-ups, and I'm still learning. And I remember in particular one of the comments under the post that he'd written about sort of saying, like, whatever your efforts are, they're not enough, was a woman saying that she's a vegetarian and she tries to eat vegan like 2 or 3 times a week, and she followed his account for recommendations like that, and she said that she just doesn't feel included in being told like she's not fucking trying hard enough and things like that. So yeah, so I'm not reading any more of his stuff, and I've unfollowed him. The end. The next book I read, so I've had some really good like 5-star reads this month. One of which being 3 Things About Elsie by Joanna Cannon. I really enjoyed this book. It was lovely. Myself and Lauren from Reads and Daydreams attempted a buddy read of this, but we just both sort of flew through it and didn't really talk about it. This is a story about Florence, and she is she's telling you the history and the backstory of her and her best friend Florence's and her best friend Elsie's friendship. It opens where Florence is laying on the floor in her sheltered accommodation, and she's waiting, and she's imagining ways in which people will come and find her, and sort of every so often you'll get a little bit where she's thinking, oh well, Simon the handyman will come and find me, oh it will probably be that woman who works in the canteen, she'll come and find me, oh it might be my next door neighbour, she'll come and find me, and things like that. There's also somebody who's turned up at the sheltered accommodation who she recognises, and she's frightened of him, but she can't really remember why, and she goes back and you see that you see her sort of backstory of finding that out as well. I love this. I enjoyed this more than I did The Trouble with Goats and Sheep. I really adored it. That being said, it is heart-crushingly sad. It's really sad, and there's a lot in there about old age and loneliness and sort of getting to the winter of your life and potentially being a bit forgotten about in terms of society looking after you and you not having all that many people around. I bought this for my mum for Mother's Day, and me being in my 30s, I feel like I'm quite a long way away from the winter of my life, and I was just like, oh god, like imagine reading this as an older person. Like there were really sad bits in it, but still so enjoyable, so lovely, and her writing is just amazing. I could just pick any line here. No, I'm not going to, because I could just pick any line and it will be a crap one, but I absolutely adored it. And this, the thing I will say is that, and this, it isn't a spoiler, but the front cover of this, which I adore, the Battenberg and then the puzzles over the top, the whole Battenberg link isn't particularly a happy one, because Florence opens her cupboard and all these Battenbergs fall out, because she's not sure whether she bought them or whether she's been hoarding them or whether someone's planted them there, and it's just, I just thought, although it looks lovely on the front cover, it's not particularly a happy link. It causes her quite some anxiety and panic over where these Battenbergs have come, but really enjoyed that, gave that 5 stars. The next book is one that took me ages to read. This is The Word for Woman is Wilderness, a novel by Abby Andrews. And I went into this really enjoying it. It tells the story of a girl, Erin, who's 19, and she decides that after watching loads and loads of nature programs and things like Bear Grylls and people like that. She wants to be one of those people that goes out exploring, and she's never seen any women like do this, so she's going to go and do that. It really quickly, literally like about 6 pages in, she's on the boat on the way to Iceland, and I really enjoyed the sort of journey of her getting to Iceland, the people she met, and then her on like in Greenland, and then her making her way to Canada. And I was thinking, bloody hell, this is moving really fast. And I really, in some ways, like it was very original to me. I haven't really read anything, so like she'd sort of talk for a bit about it, and then she'd do some script as a conversation between her and someone she's met, and in that way it moved very fast. And she was like in Canada before we knew it. And then there was like a really big chunk, and I mean like a really big chunk that was really hard work, of her living in a cabin completely by herself, and it got really sort of profound and philosophical, and I'm neither of those things. And yeah, it just dragged a bit towards the end, so I really enjoyed the sort of like funny first half of her mooching about. And like it wasn't all funny, like there was quite some dark humour in there about sexual assault she'd experienced from when she'd been in her first job and things like that. Like it was really dealt with well. But yeah, towards the end I was just like, oh god, you've lost me, and I was really like having to really drag myself through the last half. But yeah, the first half I enjoyed, so I gave that 2 stars. And then I read, which I really loved, and it's been a really long time since I've read any crime, and I think I'd read The Chalkman this year, which I thought was crap, so I was like, oh, I need a good crime book. And I read Let Me Lie by Claire Mackintosh. Now I went to the Lush book club where Claire Mackintosh was doing a Q&A, and it was like you talk about the book and things like that, but with no spoilers. And so before I'd even read this, I was properly hyped for it, and I just really enjoyed this. I spent a hell of a lot of time speculating, and do you know what I think it is? I think it's because I only read this. I didn't have anything else on the go at the time, so I was really into it. And I was doing a lot of speculating. So it starts with a girl, Anna, who has just become a mother, and you find out quite quickly that her mother and father killed themselves at Beachy Head within a year of each other. And something happens where she starts to believe that this wasn't suicide, and she gets a police officer involved, an ex-police officer called Murray, who's an amazing character, who's got a wife with bipolar, which is a really good representation, I feel like, of someone with bipolar, because it wasn't just left hanging. She was given a full character and a full storyline. And yeah, I just really enjoyed like the speculation of it, and Murray's character, and yeah, and it kept me guessing. It really did keep me guessing, and just when I thought I'd got it, I hadn't got it. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I loved I Let You Go, which is her first book. The second book, I See You, I wasn't so fond of, but this is up there. I gave this, I think I gave it like 4 or 4.5. Again, really enjoyed it very much. So yeah, really enjoyed that. I think that's a really good, the only thing about these big hardbacks is that they're not very good beach reads, are they, the hardbacks? But if this is out in paperback by the summer, this would be the perfect sort of take it on holiday, sit by the pool read. The next book I read is a library book, and that is A Change Is Gonna Come, which is stories and poetries about change from BAME authors. It says stories and poetry. There's one poem that starts it, one poem that ends it, so I was expecting a little bit more poetry. However, I really enjoyed the stories in here. It's a YA book, so they're quite accessible. One in particular that stayed in my mind was the story of Alex, who isn't given a gender in this book, and you're just told that Alex's friend's dad has been sharing, you're told that Alex's friend's dad is voting out in the Brexit vote, and Alex's friend has started sharing Britain First posts on Facebook. Now, Alex and his friend have always been best friends, and he's been around his house since he's been younger. He's had him round to his house, and there's just a sudden jolt and change in their friendship. And I really found that story really interesting, and also the fact that it wasn't gendered, so Alex was they, so yeah, I mean, I don't need to explain to you what I mean, but it wasn't gendered. I really enjoyed that. Another story I really enjoyed was the story of a girl whose mother had died, and they'd always planned to go to Nigeria, where her mother is from, when she'd finished university. And during her first year of university, her mother passes away, and she has to go to Nigeria by herself for for the funeral, and she sort of finds out a lot more about her family who she's never met before and things like that, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought this is a really good collection, and very interesting, and would really recommend it for those who are looking for BAME YA stuff. The next one is another Women's Longlist prize, which I also loved, and that is Elmet by Fiona Mosley. I absolutely flew through this. I don't know what it was, but I thought this was going to be really heavy and difficult to read. And I was really nervous going into it that I wouldn't enjoy it at all, but I loved it. So and there's something I can't really talk about because it's a bit of a spoiler. Not a spoiler, but okay, I'll tell you what the story's about, and then if you don't want to listen to what the thoughts I had, then you can just put your fingers in your ears. So yeah, this story tells this is told about a family of 3. Daddy is the father in the family, and then Daniel and Kathy, who live in the wilderness with their father, and are they're in school to start with, and then they end up being in sort of like home tuition by a friend, by her father's friend, one of the father's friends. It's told from Daniel's perspective. Daddy is a really sort of rugged character. He fights for a living. He does a lot of fighting with travellers. People bet on him and he earns money from that. He's sort of been through the wars a bit. Yeah, and you hear about their sort of life and how it's completely different to any life that I could ever imagine. So one thing I thought when I was reading it, I kept thinking that it was told from the perspective of Kathy, and then Kathy would be mentioned, and I was like, why is Kathy being mentioned? I thought it was, and then I'd have to sort of remind myself that it was actually told from the perspective of Daniel. And then you find out a bit later on that Daniel doesn't really consider himself gendered, and he's worn dresses before, and he has long hair and blah blah blah. And I just thought that was a really clever and interesting touch to have on a story that I was already really invested in, and that it started quite early on, that I was thinking, why do I keep thinking this is told from the perspective of Kathy? So I don't know how Fiona Mosley has managed to do that, like to trick me into thinking that it's narrated by a girl, and then I have to keep reminding myself that it's narrated by a boy. And yeah, I just found that as an extra bit of writing that I just writing style that I just really enjoyed. The description in this is amazing. It's just gorgeous, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. And it's for a very slow book. It's got a really fast pace sort of last 50 pages, and I don't really want to go into what happens in the last 50 pages for spoilers, but yeah, I was just like, oh, it really took me away. But I really loved this, and I gave that 5 stars, so very much enjoyed it. The next book this was so nearly a 5-star book. I really enjoyed this. This is Almost Love by Louise O'Neill, which tells the story of Sarah and her relationship with an older man called Matthew. He is about 20 years older than her, and Sarah works as an art teacher in a private school. And she meets Matthew as he's the parent of one of her pupils. I can't say I wasn't, when I was reading this the whole time, it was really troubling me, because I could really see aspects of myself and the way I had been in past relationships, and the way I'd sort of made excuses for past boyfriends and things like that, and when they hadn't texted me, and when I'd been sort of waiting to hear from someone, and the things they'd said to me, and it was really familiar to me in that sense, which was amazing, the way she's just got it all down. Like, actually, like, some of the things she says are actually word perfect things that I said. So although so compelling, enjoyable probably isn't the word, because I read it like this sometimes, like because I knew that these were the things that I had done. She's obviously done an amazing job of research. The way it flicks sort of back to when Sarah meets Matthew, and then back to what she's like now, and her talking to her friends, and just literally like taking up all their time just mentioning Matthew and things like this, and you just feel for her, and you want to give her a fucking good shake and say, snap out of it, Sarah. Remember this person you used to be, because you're seeing what she used to be before you met her, before she met Matthew. And yeah, her just gradually just basically fucking everything up for herself with her new current boyfriend, her father, her friends, things like that. I couldn't give it 5 stars because I just feel like the ending was just wrapped up really quickly. It went from being really, like, I just feel like it could have done with an extra 20 pages just to maybe like ease myself into the ending. I don't know if it was because I was so involved in it that all of a sudden when it was ended, it was like a door had slammed in my face, and I was like, oh god, but I want to know what happened. Like, I want to know that everyone's okay, which in the case of like obsessive and abusive relationships isn't always the case. But yeah, it felt like a bit like the end. I was a bit like, whoa, the doors sort of slammed in my face with this book. But I really would recommend this book, and I just found it, yeah, completely compelling. I couldn't put it down. This and Let Me Lie. These are just the fastest read books. I read this in a day, like, and I would have read it in one sitting if I didn't have other shit to be getting on with, but really love that. And then the last book is one that I've just finished, and that is another long list for the Women's Prize. That's Sing Unburied Sing by Jessamine Ward. I wasn't mad on reading this, and then after I did my video where I talked about the women's long list, I mentioned that I wasn't mad. A few people said, oh, you should definitely read this. So you follow Jojo, who's a 13-year-old boy, who lives with his mother, his sister and his grandparents on his maternal side. And then you follow Leonie, who's Jojo's mother, who's a drug dependent mother. She's never been particularly maternal, and Leonie's partner, I don't know if they're married, I don't think they are. Leonie's partner and Jojo's father has just been released from prison. He is white and Leonie is black, and the children are obviously mixed race, and they go on a journey to pick up Michael, the father and partner, from the prison, and then bring him back home. And then whilst they're there, there becomes, and this is the bit that put me off, but it really doesn't feel like ghosty. They come across the ghost of a young boy, Richie, who was in prison at the same time that Jojo's grandfather and Leonie's father was in prison. This prison called Parchman is a penitentiary. And he comes back with them and wants to see Jojo's grandfather and find out why he left him and things like that. So when I read about that, I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about the ghostiness of it. But if I can liken it to anything, and of course I'm going to liken it to Harry Potter, it's a bit like Tom Riddle's character in Chamber of Secrets. Just sort of there's no sort of like ghosty woo scary bits. It's just like more of a sort of spirit almost, which worked for me much more than I thought it was going to do, because I thought it was going to be like a bit of a ghost story, which I don't like. Yeah, it's not like that at all. But yeah, I enjoyed this. I gave it 3.5 stars. I don't think it's the winner for me. I enjoyed Elmet, and just for this month, I enjoyed Elmet and Three Things About Elsie more, but I can definitely see why it's there, and the writing is wonderful, and just like the contempt she managed to build, like the contempt she made me feel for Leonie was just wonderful. Like, she just did it perfectly. Like, I just couldn't bear Leonie so much. So yeah, so those are the books that I've read in the month of March. As I said, I've been having such a good reading year this year, guys. Out of all the books I've read, the most star ratings I've had so far have been 5 stars. I'm absolutely delighted. It's just been lovely. I think the best books, so the best books this month, my most page-turnery books, as I said, were Let Me Lie and Almost Love. I read those two so quickly. But actually, in terms of star rating, I would probably say, Elmet and Three Things About Elsie got the highest star rating. But yeah, it's just been a bloody brilliant month. I hope you guys have all had a wonderful month of reading as well. I would love to hear what you guys have been reading. If you've read any of these books, we're very interested in that. Hope you're all having a wonderful Easter weekend. I'm really hoping to vlog Easter weekend. Now I've said it, I've got to do it. So hopefully next week there'll be some vlog footage of my lovely Easter weekend. And I hope you're all well. Happy Easter, and I'll see you all again soon. Goodbye!